I have never covered Matt Walsh in any way, shape, or form before. Not extensively, anyway. But he decided to sit down with Tucker Carlson. Now, call me crazy, but I wouldn't necessarily think that to be the smartest move on his part, because clearly he was going to get backed into a corner. Tucker Carlson is not the person, or maybe he is, and he just had an epiphany. I can assure you that when the conversation of Israel-Palestine comes up, there's no gray area here. This is very cut and dry. You better know exactly where you stand immediately. You try to, in any way, throw shades of gray, you're a fraud and a liar and an aiding and abetting of a genocide. And so, to Tucker's credit, he did what was necessary, because there are a lot of those grifters out there, but let's be honest, Matt Walsh has a very large platform. Of all the people that are still employed by little Ben Shapiro over at the Daily Wire, Matt Walsh has the biggest platform. And there are many people demanding he give answers. What possessed him to go on with Tucker Carlson is anybody's guess. I know that's one. I don't plan on doing it again. We'll see.
Entire generation correctly to believe that slaughtering people because of how they were born is the greatest sin, which it is. I believe that. And now we're being, hoisted by our own standards. And my view is, no, standards are absolute. It's either true or it's not. And it's universally applicable or it's not a real thing. It's just it's identity politics. It's exactly what I hate. And identity politics is the kind of political expression of the worldview that you have just decried and declared war against. And God bless you for doing that. But that is in full flower on the right. And I don't want to dignify people by naming them, but people I know who call themselves like MAGA conservatives are defending the murder of innocents. And by the way, some of them suggest we just move the refugees into the United States because that's good for the country that they support. But is that good for us? That's an attack on American identity. You're also describing, by the way, in a lot of ways, Nicolas Maduro of Venezuela, who we're all required to hate. And I'm not supporting him, of course. But this is like the most socially conservative country in Latin America that has banned abortion, banned gay marriage, banned gender transitions, banned usury, banned, loaning at crazy interest levels.
And there it is. If you really want to know what it's all about, and forgive me, the screen is acting glitchy. If you want to know what it's all about, ladies and gentlemen, it's pretty cut and dry. It is all about money and power. I am not socially conservative like Tucker Carlson. I believe he's genuine in what he believes. But I also like how he is very good at framing controversial political issues like Venezuela. Where I stand is very simple. I don't care how Tucker Carlson convinces millions of people not to support the invasion of Venezuela and stealing their natural resources, but I'll take it however which way we can get it. But he said something very interesting there. Usury is illegal in Venezuela. And I think we all know who doesn't like that. Let's keep it real. That is as good a reason as to wanting to take over that country and put in a puppet dictatorship that loves the state of Israel.
It destroys people. I don't think he's done a good job running his country. Obviously, he hasn't. But to your point that, we should be open to talking to people who share our most basic values, how is he not on that list? Oh, shut up, you communist. But I'm not a communist. I'm not going to be bullied by your dumb labels. Not yours, but I'm anticipating the many attacks. I have been attacked for saying that, but it's true. So what's the answer? Do you see what I'm saying? So I guess what's blowing my mind is that I thought I was speaking the same language as a lot of people that I disagreed with on the margins, like about, what's the best way to harness capitalism to help people. I mean, these are real debates. And then I realized with the war in Gaza that these are people who don't believe in Western civilization, because Western civilization can be boiled down to one concept, and that's the individual. If someone does something wrong, we punish that person. We don't kill his kids. Why do we do that? Why is that our standard? Because we believe that God created every person as an individual, and every person will stand before God alone to account for his life. He's not responsible for what his children do, what his ancestors did, what his forebears might do. He's responsible for himself, because we believe in the individual soul, not the collective soul. And that's what makes our civilization unique in the history of the world. And it derives from Christianity, from the Christian belief of the individual soul.
If you believe this, if that is your foundational belief, then Tucker is correct. How could you possibly support the state of Israel? Where is the justification? We often talk about the hypocrisy of religion because so much of it is hypocritical. But when it's right in your face, when it's clear as day, how do you deny it? Tucker is willing to go places that most people are not. He can go from platforming Francesca Albanese to now platforming Matt Walsh and effectively putting him in a position where he can't win, which frankly, I don't give a shit because I don't like Matt Walsh. But this doesn't surprise me in the least. What surprises me more than anything else is, why is Matt Walsh sitting there? I would think that, I'm going to get in, well, this is strike two. Lil Ben Shapiro would never have wanted him to do this. So I would imagine he's getting a nice big strike on his holiday bonus. So we'll see what he has to say.
And I see all these people who clearly don't believe that. So how are we on the same side?
Well, so this is where we can be friends on the same side and disagree, because I wouldn't agree with everything you've just laid out there. I think now, last time we talked a little bit about Israel, and my take at the time was, I really don't care.
Right.
I just don't care. I honestly don't care.
The reason he says he doesn't care is because that would require him to have to question his boss, not going to say it, or run the risk of losing. He does have an impressive beard, I'll give him that. He runs the risk of jeopardizing his multi-millionaire career. Remember, the Daily Wire backed his movie financially, What is a Woman?, which obviously made him a lot of money. Now, if he has any plans to do anything in the future, those plans could disappear overnight. And in this case, when he says, I don't care about Israel, he doesn't care about humanity. He's showing you right there that my career, my money, is infinitely more important than whether or not you perceive me as being a religious hypocrite, of which he is an abhorrent religious hypocrite. I don't care about Israel? No shit, Sherlock.
I want that take bad.
Yeah.
I don't want to care. I don't want anything to do with this.
That's still my take. That's always been my take. It upsets people on both. This is one legitimately on both sides of the Israel issue. People get mad at me for that because they say that, well, if they're very pro-Israel, they say, well, you're being a coward and you need to stand up and support Israel and talk about how Israel's our greatest, most important ally and all this stuff. But then another side, very much, it's, well, no, Israel's the great Satan. They're the most evil country in the world.
Right.
They're responsible for everything bad that happens.
You know, if you really wanted to have a little bit of fun here, guys, what you really want to do is clip what Matt Walsh just said and say, hey, did you hear what Matt Walsh said about the state of Israel? He finally told the truth. I'm just saying. When you say take things out of context, that would be one to have a little fun with.
And which is something that I think some people legitimately really do believe at some level.
A lot of people believe that.
Right. And so then they say to me, well, you need to stand up and say, and say that. And again, my response to that is, first of all, don't tell me what to say. Okay. I have my own mind.
Amen.
So don't tell me what to say. I will say what I want to say. And I can only speak from my own opinion. This is my view. And I think, and we'll get back to it, but not to get sidetracked. This is one thing, by the way, that's making political conversation in this country impossible, is that all anyone ever does anymore is impugn the motives behind the argument that you're making. So you make an argument, and then everyone goes, well, you're only saying that because, and it's like, first of all, even if it's true that I'm making this argument for some dishonest reason, well, is the argument right or not?
It's wrong. The only reason you're saying what you're saying, and what the hell, it's because Ben Shapiro doesn't want you talking about this. Yeah. I'm telling you, he's in his room right now trying to hit the speed bag, and the speed bag keeps kicking his ass. You don't care? Well, you're going to care eventually.
And that I almost never, ever talked about Israel. And when I did talk about it, on the rare, like once every 5 years, if it came up, my take was, I don't really care about this. I don't care about this country. It's not my country. If you're in America, if you're an American politician, you should care about America first. And that's it. That's always been my take. So that's always been my take.
By the way, me too, believe it or not, up until the last year, I don't, in 35 years, I don't think I've talked about Israel 10 times. So here's the point. It's not actually about Israel. It's about the components of the American right.
Right.
Who are defending mass murder, and I mean that murder, killing people who didn't do anything wrong, in Gaza. That's it. It's not Israel. It's what about the parts of this coalition that, as you noted, Charlie really did keep together, that are now fracturing. But one of the reasons they're fracturing is because they have different views, different worldviews. And that is obvious when you hear how they respond to the murder of like kids and women in Gaza. So it's Americans responding to that. Are you really conservative? How are you not the leftist that you just described if you're like, well, they're basically all Hamas, including the kids? That is collective punishment. That's blood guilt. That's the opposite of what you described. How can I be on the same side as someone with that attitude?
Well, here's what I would say. I think that if somebody is making the argument that we or Israel can kill as many Palestinians as they want, can kill children because their lives have no value, because they're Palestinian. If you're making that argument, then that is a leftist argument.
Exactly. It's a leftist argument.
However, I think that there are plenty of people who would defend and have defended Israel's actions in Gaza, and even our involvement, which I don't agree with us being involved at all, but people have had that view. But not on that basis. What they would say is, they would say, oh, well, it's not true that they're killing children. It's not, or it's really tragic, but it's there's no other way to fight the war. It's not intentional. We're actually targeting the terrorists, and these are casualties that happen like in any war. It's very bad. You try to minimize them, but we don't want that to happen. They could say, there's many arguments along those lines. It's also arguments that just kind of reject the premise. Like your premise is that they're doing mass murder of people in Gaza.
Well, he finally said something that actually made sense. They are doing mass murder in Gaza, and you took almost 2 minutes to not concur with what Tucker is saying, but to, once again, not offend your boss, because in the end, your career Your ability to make money, your ability to grift is the most important thing in your world, no matter how many people have to suffer. And this whole idea that, ooh, I don't care about Israel. Well, you know what? It would be easy not to also, it would clearly be easy not to care about Israel if they didn't have a substantial intertwined relationship with our country. Israel is us and we are them. So when you say you don't care, you do care. You care enough not to talk about it because you know if you did not go along with the America First movement, you're finished. But you also know that if you do not go along with what your Zio scumbag of a boss preaches, you're finished too. So you really are stuck. You can't win no matter what you do, and that's a good thing. You made millions of dollars by making the trans issue a major political talking point for like 3 years. You got to be fucking kidding me. And that's not to say that I'm on board with the trans movement, because I'm not. But you decided to make a movie about it for the purpose of making money. And when the question of you want to say I'm honest about the way that I feel about this particular topic, of which it has a micro fracture of an impact on our daily lives compared to the state of Israel, and you don't have one fucking thing to say about them, you are a coward. You're a cuck and a coward. How's that? As Jen says, a perfectly wasteful use of a good beard. Maybe he is a beard. You never know.
I think that there are conservatives who would just reject that premise and say that's not actually happening.
Okay, but if you just, I think the undisputed fact there are tens of thousands, 70,000, we can certainly say tens of thousands of women and children killed in Gaza. And so there are really two arguments you can make. One is that like that happens in war, collateral damage, which is true. It's 100% true that always happens in war. It hasn't happened at this scale in 80 years, but in the West, but it does happen, and the United States has done a lot of it. We dropped the atom bombs, okay? So, like, Israel's not the only country that's done this. But what are you sad about it? Do you think it's bad? Would you be willing to say, holy shit, I can't believe we killed 70,000 non-combatants? That's the acid test. Can you admit that that's horrible? It's horrible. It's a moral crime. It was a moral crime when we dropped the bomb on Hiroshima. And it's not even a close call in my view.
And he's not willing to answer it. So like I said, I don't know what possessed Walsh to go on with him. It really wasn't a situation where he could win in any way. This was a lose-lose proposition. And sure, if Tucker Carlson gives you a call and says, hey, I'd really like to have you on the show, let's talk about X, Y, and Z. He has to know ahead of time that this is an issue that's going to come up. He could say no and say, look, I'm in a lose-lose situation. Do I think that Matt Walsh is truly on board with what's going on in Gaza and is fully on board with the state of Israel? No, I don't. His body language, the way he talks about it. Thank you, Fetish Magic. Appreciate it. No, I don't think Matt Walsh is on board with this. But if you're not, then you have an obligation, not just as a Christian, but as a humanitarian. If you truly care about humanity, as you cared as much as you did about the trans issue, how in the ever-loving F do you not say something about this? Are you that incompetent? Or are you that much of a scaredy cat? Ben Shapiro's the person that scares you? Do you feel that you don't have the capability to venture out on your own, start your own channel, and do what we're doing right now? I'd be hard-pressed to think that you wouldn't have that ability, but perhaps you've gotten so used to a certain lifestyle that you've gotten so used to a certain amount of income that you're not willing to bet on yourself that you could do it on your own. We all know that Michael Knowles is not capable of doing it on his own. But a lot of people think you would be capable. So it is surprising to watch him sit there, sort of roundabout say what needs to be said, but he won't say it. He just won't. And in many ways, that makes him worse. Because in the end, you'll be remembered for what you did during the hard times, not the soft times. And at a time like this, where it is as hard and as bad as it could ever be for just about everybody, speaking truth to power is as important as anything if you're going to enact that change. Tucker Carlson buried him without even attempting to do it. He just let him hang himself, essentially. That's what he did. Tucker's I keep telling you guys, he's a very shrewd operator. He knows exactly what he's doing. And I tip my hat. I do.